Yearbook. On this show, we pick pieces of pop culture that were important to us in a given year. We then discuss memories and dig into those movies, albums, shows, and more. I'm Brad.
I'm Pete.
And I'm GIF.
All right, 1984, big year.
Oh, it's awesome year.
Yeah.
Had a great episode
man.
last week, great guests.
And
Yes,
how?
Now we're going to get into the nitty gritty.
That's right.
We got movies all month. This was the year. I mean, and when we went through our top fives, I don't know about you guys, but there was a ton of music options too.
Yes.
But we all picked a movie, and I really had no choice when I looked at the list. I mean, and so let's just get into it.
Yes.
You know, before we get into the movie itself, I'm just going to say that I can relate to the movie because my half birthday was just the other day and nobody remembered. Nobody
Oh,
wished me a
Pete,
happy
I'm
birthday.
sorry. Shoot,
It
I
was
would
on
have, but
Friday.
I don't care.
Thanks.
Backing
man.
up just a second, Gif, you're usually the guy that kind of does this. Did we ever give a shout out to our latest supporter? I don't think we did.
We got to
Oh,
do it.
no.
Who's our
Do
Do you
latest
guys remember
supporter, Brad?
doing that?
No.
No.
I feel
Well,
like
let's
we
do it
slipped
again.
on that one, and so we need to do that fast.
Yes. Get into it.
Because we don't ever want to not shout out or give credit to our supporters because they are our. I was wondering, we always called them classmates, but I feel like we should change that to BFFs.
Okay, then.
I don't know. Well, we love them, so.
All right, we'll send that up to the board.
So do you
and,
want to do
have
that
them
quick,
approve-
Gif?
Have them vote on
Yeah,
it.
I'm getting there. Hold on one second.
That's your job. That's
I
a job
know.
we've assigned
No,
to
and if-
you.
I know.
If we're not sure, if we already gave them a shout out, it never hurts to give them a second shout
Well,
out.
it certainly doesn't. No.
That's true. So,
No,
yes.
because they deserve it.
Yes, a little while back, a classmate of ours from RTR, Eric Harper, reached out on our buy us a beer page and was kind enough to donate a little to the cause, and we want to thank him very much for that. And also one of our most ardent supporters, Johnny Ballgame, Johnny Malkin himself, he also threw a few more bucks into the kitty
Two-time
for us.
supporter.
Yeah. So
Now he's the BFF then.
right.
What I
yes.
think is, I mean, he's basically he'll take out a second mortgage on his home to donate to our show, and we love him
Right.
for it.
Yeah.
Well, I
Eric
like to think-
Harper is a former mayor of Tyler,
Yes.
so that's big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got
We're getting
the big
into the political
politicians
realm.
coming in. Yeah, we don't want to
Yeah,
get political.
We're not talking politics, but he was a mayor, so I got to give him a shout out
That's
for
true.
that.
He's donating to our campaign, you could argue.
That's right.
I also want to just put a plug in. If you ever go on our link tree that we throw out, there's a link on there now. We now have a web page too.
Oh, yeah.
And so you can find our webpage if you go to www.podpage.popcultureyearbook. And it's a great place to listen to the show. You can listen to it right on there. It also has, like, if you're a newer listener, as we hope we are always finding, it's got all the episodes categorized. So if you like music episodes, you can see them in one place. If you like the movie ones, if you like the TV ones, and so on. So it's a pretty cool page, and it was fun to put it together and very simple. So just if you're a fellow podcaster listening, I'll throw in a plug for Podpage. It's a pretty awesome and easy website to use.
We should make an instructional video for our newer listeners.
Instructional video of what? We should turn it into one of those instructional dance songs that you and me hate so much, Pete.
Oh yeah. Everybody clap your hands.
I hate that.
No,
Yeah, I'm not
never.
having fun with that at all.
All right. Any more plugs?
No, I don't think so. I think we get back to our feature for the evening. I say everybody open their ear holes and prepare for an auditory orgasm.
That's a new one.
Yeah.
All right, so when I was going through these lists, like I said, there was
by the way,
tons of...
I now have my fantasy football team name right there. Sorry,
Ah.
Brad. I'm going with that.
That's a good one. Anyway, there was a ton of music that we'll get into in our Ghostbusters episode that Gifford chose because Ghostbusters had pretty good soundtrack, along with it, so that made sense. And there was obviously a lot of good TV, but we did 1985 TV, so that kind of covered this time period. And
Yep.
there was some great movies. And my top 5, man, I could have picked any one of them plus some others. But when I was growing up, this was my all-time absolutely favorite movie as a kid. And many people in my family also thought the same thing. I saw this so many times. We all said we saw it over 100 times. And that movie is 16 Candles. And this is probably one of the movies that made me love movies, actually, when you think about the time and the rewatching of it over and over and over again. So it was fantastic. It was my introduction to John Hughes, Molly Ringwald, and Anthony Michael Hall, 3 people who would be huge in my upbringing as far as movies and pop culture. We'll get into some of the things that maybe haven't aged as well. But I thought
we certainly will.
As a kid,
yeah.
Long Duck Dong, I mean, in the 1980s, as an 8-year-old, I mean, I don't think you're going to be lying if you say you thought he was the greatest character of all time.
On my rewatch 2 nights ago, I would still say he's one of the highlights of the
Well, he is.
show.
He really does. He steals the show.
He does. And we'll get into that as we go along as well. But
and he actually went on to do many other movies too. So it's no slouch.
I've got a list of movies that he was in.
Why don't you say them right now? Gedde Watanabe.
Gedde Watanabe. He was in films such as Volunteers. I think that was a Tom Hanks movie, right?
Tom Hanks and John Candy, yes.
Gung Ho. That was
with Michael Keaton.
Oh, I loved that movie as a kid.
That's one I saw in the movie theater.
UHF with Weird Al Yankovic. He was in Gremlins 2. Another Tom Hanks movie, That Thing You Do. Armageddon. And he was even in the Seinfeld episode.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
There?
Yeah.
Oh God, I had it. Shoot.
Well, do you have down who he was, Pete?
I just said it was he appeared in Seinfeld. I didn't look up the character.
All right.
I think it was a later. I think it was a later season episode, and I'd have to go back and look.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, we'll look that up later.
If
you're dying to know at home, you can IMDb it.
Sorry, I knew there would be a quiz.
But anyway, this movie was hilarious and it was like the first one. And like I said, it's the first movie I loved. And so I was a huge Karate Kid fan and still am today. And we'll get into some others here later. And so I seriously considered a few others, but I just kept going back to, I have to pick this movie. There's just, if the point of this podcast is to pick the things that had the biggest impact on you at that time, well, then this was one of the easiest choices I ever had to make. So that's where we're at. 16 Candles.
Mr. O in a 1996 episode of Seinfeld. Yeah. Not ringing a bell.
Not placing that one.
No.
So what do you guys remember?
He was
when did you first see this movie?
He was in the episode, by the way, of Seinfeld where Kramer had these drawers that he put these people in.
Oh yeah,
he would
the Fartman
in the drawers. Yes.
Yeah. Basically, it's like a bed and breakfast, but the beds were inside this.
And then they warped, and he couldn't get them open because of the heat from the. Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Right.
See, once you get that one little clue, you can remember the whole thing.
Right.
What do you guys remember? When did you first see this movie?
So my guess is the first time I saw this movie was edited as a late night ABC movie that would usually come on like Saturday nights after the news. I would record a lot of those if whatever was going to be on was interesting to me. So I know I went to this in the movie theater. But the first time I saw it would have been on television. The odd thing is this is a PG rated movie.
Oh, I know, and we'll get to that here too.
So to say you didn't go to it in the movie theater is like, well, why wouldn't you? You could have went to a PG movie as an 8-year-old.
This was one of those movies right before the PG-13 came out, and I'm sure this is one of those movies that led to it.
Yep.
They talk more about, I think, Gremlins and the Temple of Doom as like the two big ones, but I always thought this was part of that too.
This one showed boobs full on.
Yeah, and the F word. I mean, it's
Yeah,
got
the
both.
F-bomb
It's got
5
everything you're
minutes
not supposed
in.
to have.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Plus all these other problematic things that at the time nobody cared about, and now we all will get into.
Cringe at when we see it. Pete, how about yourself? What'd you have for memories?
I don't recall seeing the movie for the first time, but I feel like, Brad, that it probably was with you because I
Well, there's a
remember
very
that
good chance.
I remember how much you loved this movie and that it was your all-time favorite movie. And like it was actually everyone was introduced to John Hughes. This was his directorial debut. And it was classic John Hughes. It was set in Chicago, just like all the John Hughes movies. But I don't recall the very first time that I saw it, but I remember seeing it a number of times back in the day.
Yeah.
So this wasn't one your family, like I remember you talked about Vacation and how you went and rented movies.
Yeah.
This wasn't one of your families then, huh?
I don't recall ever watching this one with my family at all.
Okay. But my brother and sister for sure, and I even know my mom and dad saw it many times, and I think my dad was actually pretty, at least would, enjoyed it if it was there. It's not like he's going to go seek it out or anything, but
Well, and I would think with your siblings being as much older than you guys, like this would have been right in their wheelhouse.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my sister, I mean, she loved it. We all loved it.
Right.
All right. So, we already mentioned a couple of the people that are in this, but I learned a few things before.
Mhm.
So Molly Ringwald, this is obviously her, big movie that put
Coming
her on
out,
the map.
yep.
But two others that did get considered for it were Robin Wright from Eva the Princess Bride 3 years later, and Ali Sheedy from just the next year.
Breakfast Club.
She
So.
didn't get the role, but she got a call back a little bit later from John Hughes for the Breakfast Club. Yep.
Right.
And Michael Scheffling, who plays the Dreamboat Jake, who he must have just decided to quit acting. I didn't really find anything about why he wasn't in anything after a few years later, but he won that role over the other person considered was Viggo Mortensen.
Right.
Going way back.
Yep. Well, and
go ahead.
I thought he did a nice job with the role. Like I didn't think he was super corny or, a bad actor. And obviously he's a very good-looking man. So you'd think he would have done well coming off of this movie. But yeah, it is weird that he just kind of went away.
Yeah. And then the other one that I thought was interesting is Anthony Michael Hall obviously is, synonymous with the geek, but another person who was considered or tried out for that was Jim Carrey.
Yeah, I found that to be crazy. I
wonder
don't know
what he looked like back in 1984 and how he would have filled that role.
The reason that I came across that Anthony Michael Hall won the role over Jim Carrey and everybody else is because everybody else came in as a prototypical nerd. They had the pocket protector, they had the glasses, and they were trying too hard to be a nerd. Anthony Michael Hall came in and just played it straight, and that's what stood out. He could be like a real life nerd kind of guy, a geek kind of guy that would be in your school, and he would blend in. And he wasn't trying too hard, and that's what made him stand out.
Well, and John Hughes didn't direct Vacation, but he wrote it, and I'm sure it hurt that Anthony Michael Hall is coming off of Vacation.
Right.
Sure.
So.
Well, and with the Vacation mention here, Sam's dad's license plate on his car is V58, which is a nod to Vacation 58. Yep.
Automobile?
Oh. Yep.
All right, so the movie starts. You've got this opening scene. The whole family's getting ready for the day, and we hear about this wedding coming up the next day. And my first thing that I noticed and have remembered from the beginning is that the little brother is so annoying. He is just, and he plays the role great. I mean, he's annoying.
That's what he's supposed to do.
But he's kind of got that idea of this, the better off dead brother. I mean, coming kind of from these types of roles.
Yep.
Very different. Yeah. But that little brother who is annoying and weird.
Well, and the thing I noticed,
bad lines.
Right. A couple things I noticed right off the bat. One, if you watch the credits, he gets second billing to Molly Ringwald in this movie.
Well, is it in order of appearance then?
No, even on like IMDb, he's the third guy listed. Yeah, it was strange to me. But I thought it was weird the spread in the kids' ages. You got 4 kids in this house, and you got the oldest daughter who's getting married, and then the youngest sister who's probably what, 8, 9 years old.
Who, the brother?
No, there's another little sister that's there as well in the beginning of the movie.
I of all the
Yeah, that's
times
true,
I've
but
seen
you
this,
don't
like,
really-
she made no impact on me. I don't even remember.
Okay. I was just impressed with, Dad for, keeping it up for that long. That's, good for him.
Speaking of the older sister who's going to get married, what is with her? She always seems high.
Mhm.
And at the end of the movie, she
And
is.
obviously-
She is
Like,
high.
even
Yes,
just
and
during
drunk.
like all her lines, she just is in this weird delivery, and I've never quite understood that either.
I think
Yeah,
she's
I
supposed to
thought the
come
same
off as
thing.
the aloof princess, kind
Yeah,
of.
I guess.
So I think maybe that, because she's just kind
That's
of floating around.
That's
in
another
her-
good fantasy football team name right there.
The aloof princess.
Yeah.
It's funny you're bringing up fantasy football names. I've also started watching the league again, so I'm deep into that. But I think that's what it was. She was just somebody who was just in her own bubble, really didn't care about anything else that's going on, which we see because she forgets it's her sister's birthday right away and calls her an asshole, and
Yeah. Well, that's a good description. Thank you.
You bet.
So we find out Sam, it's her birthday, and she's very excited about it, but she is not excited at the same time because she feels like she looks and feels exactly the same, and she thought there'd be some change, but there wasn't. We got our first mention of the Rice Chicks.
Yes.
They mispronounce the other in-law's name wrong all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, as everybody's getting ready, nobody remembers her birthday. And in fact, like you just said, some of them are even kind of rude to her. I think her mom, I don't have all the quotes down, but her mom says something that makes her kind of upset.
She didn't have time to cut her carrots for her.
Is that
So
what it
she'll
was?
have to buy her lunch today, and she can have carrots when she gets home if she's
Well,
not
actually,
upset about it.
What she did say is, so Sam goes, "That's it? You don't have anything else to say to me today?" And she
Mhm.
goes, "What do you want me to say, Sam?"
Right.
And then to herself, she goes, "They fucking forgot my birthday." And then the credits come up. So the whole movie sets up right there in that opening part.
Mhm.
Yep.
Birthday forgotten. Here we go.
Well, and the interesting thing is too, when you see the credits come up, Hall is credited as the geek,
The geek.
not even as Ted
Mhm.
Farmer, which
Right.
is his name, and everybody calls him Farmer Ted because if
Oh,
you
his last
get-
name is Farmer? I've never really got, I thought that was just a nickname.
No,
Yeah,
so this
I
this
thought
is
that
where
too,
this
and I
comes
looked it
from
up.
is that his name is Ted Farmer, but if you're used to roll call in a school, you always say the last name first, so everybody calls him
Boy,
Farmer Ted.
I'm learning new things about my favorite movie here.
Yeah. So I just thought it was weird they credited him as the geek and not as his character's name.
So you got the setup, and then you've got this awesome '80s montage of all the kids getting ready for school, walking during the credits. You've got this synth '80s music playing. It's just an awesome imagery to look at. I've always remembered the two with their hands in the back pockets.
Yep.
That's like what stands out to me the most there.
Well, and the clothing is just great. I mean, it's
Mhm.
you're balls deep in 1984 with all of the, all of the attire that they're wearing. So I thought that was great. One thing I found that was interesting was that the costume person for this film didn't want Ringwald to wear a hat in the I think in the beginning
Yeah,
sequence
she's wearing a
here.
hat the first day to school.
And hat sales went through the roof after this after this movie came out, I guess. So she was quite the trendsetter by wearing that hat.
So within the first 5 minutes, already quoted, we got an F-bomb.
Mm-hmm.
And then within the next 5 minutes, we see her and her friend in the locker room, and just there's a close-up of two boobs right on the screen.
Yep.
Of Carolyn,
Yep.
the girl they all desire to be.
And that
And so
was
that's your PG movie in 1984.
right. And that
Mhm.
was a body double. The actress playing Carolyn was, I think she was 24 during the
Yeah, I looked that up. She's around that, I think.
yeah, when they
Even
did
from the
this
far
movie.
shots?
Yeah. Because here's the
I thought
thing.
that looked like her when you see the whole body.
Well, then they just go in on a close-up face, and that's her face.
Oh, okay.
But the shots in the shower of the nudity are a body double, and the reason for that was, despite her being 9 years older than Molly Ringwald, she was less well endowed, and she thought it was dumb that the director would want a nude shot of her because she
Oh,
didn't really have anything to
Really?
show.
yeah, that's kind of the point of the scene. That's what they're
Yeah.
that's what they're talking about.
Exactly.
Like how fantastic she is. They're all
Mhm.
jealous.
Right.
Mhm.
All right, so she meets her friend in the hallway, and then we get to the first scene in class, and sets up kind of the next part. So
Mhm.
she's filling out this paper sex test that you pass around, and it asks her if she's ever done it, and she writes, "I don't think so."
Right.
And then if you have done it, or who would you do it with? And she names Jake Ryan, tries to pass it back to her friend, but she's sleeping. It falls on the floor, and who gets it, of course, is Jake. So
Jake.
he's already staring at her. You can already tell he was like interested in her, and he's kind of got this weird thing where he doesn't quite know. But
Yep.
then he sees that, so he's gonna be more
Yeah.
piqued at that point.
Well, I would think
Mhm.
if a girl, if you says that she wants to have sex with you, that would pique the interest of any
Yes.
senior boy or any high
Yes.
school boy. So yeah.
Him and his friend are doing quote unquote pull-ups, talking about Sam Baker.
Mhm.
That scene was funny.
Yeah.
And the friend just does not understand, and he says, "You got Caroline. Now she's a woman." And then this is where it goes. We got the boing
Yes.
as they get to the actual shower scene right here.
Here is where, though, you pick up on this point that I had written down. A movie like this, always the jock is an asshole and the geek is always the good guy that gets the girl in the end. But
Mhm.
in this movie, this is a very unique movie in a sense. The jock is actually a really good guy, and they're both good guys.
Actually,
and they have
Carolyn is too. They talk about how
yeah,
perfect she is, and she says hi in the hallway. She's not a mean girl.
right,
Yeah, but she turns
right.
out to be kind of a dink at the later on in the movie with the
Well, when she's
whole.
drunk.
Yeah, but
to
even
her
at the
boy.
dance, she wanted to get out of there, and she tells Jake, there's 10 guys that I could have right now. I
That's
mean,
true.
Yeah,
So
She's
it's
not.
not
I
like
mean,
a lot
they
of
have a
movies that,
dysfunctional relationship, but she's
Right.
not really mean to the other girls. It appears.
But I completely
Right.
agree, Pete, that Jake is, genuinely a nice guy, but a lot of the jocks that are around him are more
yes.
the, prototypical,
jock guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and the one guy that's in this pull-up scene is prime example of that
Mhm.
in the movie, and his name is Rock.
Is it?
Yeah,
I missed that.
I didn't catch that in the movie, but I found it in as I was researching it. But that's what his name is, Rock.
Mhm.
He's kind of a jerk, but and the buddies that are bullying the nerd kids later at the party and stuff, but it's not like it's not a key it's not a key point to the plot of the movie, where it's always think of Better Off Dead, where the where the jock guy is just a total ass, an over the top asshole.
Mhm. Oh,
It's
yeah.
not that way at all in this movie.
Well, and even the jock guys that pick on Ted's friends, there's the scene where they pull him out of the trunk. They
Yeah.
They
dropped
do
him
it
off.
very gently.
They dropped him off at the buddy's house. Like, they didn't drop him off in the
Yeah,
middle
they
of
drop him
nowhere.
off where
Like,
he
it,
belongs. Yeah,
yeah, it was
exactly.
front door service.
Pick them out and carry them very neatly. It's
Yep. Yeah. So they weren't all bad, I guess.
In fact,
we're on
didn't
the
I
bus
haul you
now.
guys around in a trunk one night, both of you?
I've been in the trunk more than once.
I've been in a trunk and the back of a pickup.
Yep.
I thought that I was driving you guys around in Minneapolis.
sounds
in a
familiar.
trunk one night.
That sounds correct. Yeah.
And you two were in the trunk. So I was basically we were reenacting this movie.
Well, we were hoping that when we got to our destination,
We weren't
would
wearing-
gently pick us up out of the trunk and set us down.
And we weren't wearing headlights on our foreheads
did.
either.
That's great. They pop
Or
the trunk
jock
and they-
straps like the guys on the bus.
Oh.
Now we get to the bus, and I love the bus scene.
Yes.
Everybody hates riding the bus, and this is just such a perfect little encapsulation. And they're shooting their guns. Score a direct hit. And when the bus comes around the corner and the kazoo music is playing, and oh my god, that is so perfect how they do that.
Right.
So everybody gets off. You've got 3 people left on the bus. You
Yes.
got Molly Ringwald, the geek, and Joan Cusack, who
Yeah.
has a
I had
very
forgotten that she
voiceless,
was in this
wonderful
movie.
performance throughout the movie.
Both
Yeah.
John and Joan Cusack star in
Correct.
this movie, which I had forgotten.
Yep.
So starting here, she just makes noises. She's just kind of just every time.
She's got the neck brace on for reasons we don't know why, but she's got a neck brace on.
Yep. And again, I love the music choices. So when he's walking up to see her on the bus, you got the Twilight Zone music playing. Everything's always setting up. Or no.
No, it's
I'm skipping
Dragnet.
ahead to when she gets home. Sorry.
Yeah. Isn't it the Dragnet music when
Yes.
Ted comes up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. But that's good too.
Yep.
And he tries to hit on her. It does not go well. Talks about the dance, foreshadowing later on, meeting up again there.
Mhm.
The Twilight Zone music is when she gets home and learns the grandparents are there. And this totally reminded me of Christmas Vacation when the
Yes.
grandparents,
Yeah.
you got the ding dong and the scary sounding stuff and
Mhm.
grandparents coming in.
I love the over the top funny grandpa.
Well, and
Which
right
one?
away it's all about their ailments.
The one that was laughing about everything and he was telling
Yeah,
these
okay.
jokes and
Yep.
Yeah, they're both talking about their corns and they're talking at the same time. It's all just like the Christmas Vacation scene. They also don't remember her birthday, which maybe is one of the more
Yeah.
stretchy reality things because what grandparent, even though I guess she says that, I think, doesn't she? What kind of grandparent forgets a birthday?
They live for this shit.
They live for
yeah.
But everybody's attention is on the wedding. That's the excuse, is that there's a
Mhm.
wedding and that's how potentially this could happen.
Right.
And then so we meet these grandparents, and the crazy one that Pete brought up is going at her, and the grandma says, or no, he says to the grandma, "Leave her alone. You'll make her tinkle." And then she feels her up, and he says, "Oh, let me go get my magnifying glass."
Right. Oh, so awkward.
Very
So oh
That's
yeah.
one of the first things that would be considered very inappropriate about the movie, but still quite funny.
Oh yeah.
We then meet another thing that people would probably say is very inappropriate, and that would be Long Duck Dong.
Yes.
His name itself is just not very culturally sensitive, and his whole thing is just, to be the funny um, foreign exchange student.
Yep.
Right.
But it's the classic beginning. I mean, who doesn't remember the first time as a kid seeing this movie and him dropping his head below the bunk
down.
bed?
Yep.
What's happening? Hot stuff. I don't
Yep.
think I quoted that any line more than that for the first 15 years of my life.
Oh really? I got a different one that yeah.
Well, there's more, yeah.
Yeah.
But then we start to see every time they say his name, this is another thing that's not going to happen today. They play a gong every
Gong.
time you hear his
Anytime
name.
he comes on screen or they mention his name, there's a
Oh, yeah.
gong sound that was added in. It's just
Different time.
very different time.
Her mom
Well-
asks her to turn on the oven and can you remember this? And she just goes, I can remember lots of things.
Right.
That's a good one.
Well, and here we also have another offensive term. They refer to Dong as a Chinaman.
A Chinaman, yeah.
They refer to Ginny's fiance
Oily bohunk.
as a bohunk, which is a derogatory term as well. And we've also had our first F-bomb for a gay person.
Oh,
And
the
it's-
other F word, yes. That's
Right,
in here at least
yes.
2 times.
And
we have
and that
the
was said by
short
the little brother,
version
wasn't
and
it?
and the full version are each in this.
Yeah, I think the little
brother.
brother said it first, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And we also have an R word in this
Yep.
show as well. So
This movie really hits everything. It's got 1 or 2 of everything.
I had my
2 boobs,
offensive
2 F words,
Yep.
another
I had
R
my
word.
offensive words bingo card out, and I nailed it. I
Yep.
got done.
You got the culturally insensitive character and sound. It's got it all.
It sure does.
But man, we ate it
1984.
up.
We sure did.
All right, we get the dinner scene, and this is one of my favorite lines in the movie. This one isn't too bad. So there's somebody. It's a quiche, and Doc goes, "Well, how do you spell?" And the grandpa goes, "Well, you don't spell it, son. You eat it."
Right.
I love to say that one all the time.
Did you notice that he was using the 2 spoons, the handles of 2 spoons as the chopsticks?
I have never noticed that. No.
No.
Just so many dumb things to try to stereotype. And I did read a thing that What's the actor's name again? I'm sorry.
Dong?
Yeah,
Getty Watanabe?
Getty Watanabe.
Getty took that accent from a South Korean friend of his. That's not anything like how he talks.
He
but
talks like in an American accent, right?
like a normal
Yeah.
American, person. Sorry for saying normal, I guess. But yeah, see, he used a accent of a South Korean friend and just, took it to an extreme, I guess.
So the grandma suggests, if you're going to a dance, why don't you take Long Duck Dong with you?
Yes.
Which horrifies Sam. And we don't really ever even see them go together, but just like that, we're at the dance and she's not with him, but we'll see he's there too. So we're at the dance just like that. Yep. And you've got the nerd. I love the nerd wall. They just pan over all the nerds, and they're playing a good song at that time too, aren't they? Or
they're all good songs. Yeah.
Well, there's all kind. Yeah, this whole scene has got good songs. But you see John Cusack there. You see the friend there. You see Anthony Michael Hall. And what I found interesting is that John Cusack looks so young.
He was.
But We Did Better Off Dead. It's 1 year later.
Yeah.
He seems like he grew up so much between those two movies.
Well, he was 17, I think, when he did this movie. One of the things I loved about when Sam and her friend are walking into the dance, you see those two parents shoving their child into the dance.
That's actually later when she's in the hallway, I think. But yeah, I want to stay with you guys.
You see it there too. And then later on when she's crying in the hallway, they're pushing him in a second time. And all I could think was, is that Greeble?
I actually had that same thought. That's hilarious.
All right, we see Anthony Michael Hall again, the geek. He goes out on the dance floor and he's trying to hit on Sam. And I love this line too. Just very hot, very hot. That's another one. Just always said, stuck with you. She gets overwhelmed and just runs out in the hallway.
Yep.
She can't stand it. Everything is going wrong. He goes back to his friends and starts to have this conversation, and it leads to he's not a geek. He's a stud, and he's going to prove it. And the bet is on that he can get her underpants. Girls underpants.
Girls. Yeah, they look at each other, the two friends, and they have to stop and yell at him that they need girls underpants. I wrote this other thing down here. We see that Dong has now found a dance partner.
He's got a girlfriend, just like that.
She is credited as Lumberjack. She does not have a girl's name, but I just love where they're dancing.
6'4".
And she asked him, "What's your last name?" And he says, "Dong." And what's your first name? Long.
What's your middle name?
And the look on her face after he says Long is just absolutely priceless.
Jake tells the geek, so they run into each other. They have these run-ins, but he tells Anthony Michael Hall, the geek, to relax when they're talking. And I love this too. He takes everything so literally. He turns around, he shakes it out. He has to literally make the movements to relax. It's such a great performance. This kid, man, he was so good at all these roles.
He was the man. Absolutely, he was the man.
We see Joan Cusack again, just some comic relief. So she's dancing and she's just kind of going back and forth just because, she's all stiff from the headgear and the neck brace and everything.
We see her at the water
fountain. And then she's got that little shirt with the little dress on it that she can use as a bib.
And the girl on her sweater has little bloomers on underneath the dress. So I always thought that was really funny. And then we see her again later at Jake's party, and she's trying to drink a beer, but she can't tilt her head back in order to drink the beer. I mean, such a small role, but she is so memorable. She's so good in it.
Does she? And I was going to pay attention. Does she ever say a word?
I
don't just make noises and.
So. Yeah, she just does little weird gags, but
just
I don't
totally
think she
memorable classic role.
Right.
Farmer Ted is back trying again on the bleachers, and now Sam has some friends around her, and they don't want him around. And this is another line that I always love: "Nice manners, babe," amongst others. But
I like when Sam's friend says, "Can I be honest with you?"
Oh yeah, that's the
And
other
he
one.
says, "Well, not if you're going to insult me."
Yeah.
I mean,
Get the
so
hell out of here.
so Ted is the geek in this show, right? He's the nerdy geek.
He's the king of the geeks.
I gotta tell you, I would still kill to have that kid's confidence
Yeah, the confidence. That's what
because
he's
he never stops going
Mhm.
after what he's going for. Like
got. Well,
throughout
and
the
look what he
entire
ends up
movie.
with at the end of the
It
movie.
paid off in the end.
Well,
which
but
we'll
in
get to.
any situation, he doesn't seem nervous. He just keeps going after it the whole movie.
No, nothing
and
stops him.
I would have loved to have had a tenth of that kid's confidence when I was in high school.
So we flash. Sam has now disappeared into the shop room, sitting in a car or some kind of shop room.
Yep.
He follows her again, not giving up. He stands there kind of watching her quietly, and I love how he just knocks over that entire huge thing and all the noise that gets made.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And then I love how he goes up to her and says, I had no idea you couldn't dance.
Right.
And you can't tell if he's clueless or if he is just, these are lines that he
If
can
he's
just come
playing
up
it
with.
cool.
Yeah.
And he, again, another performance. He gets in the car, okay, obviously, but he adjusts the side mirror when he gets into the car.
Well, and
Another
one
great
thing,
film.
Well, he
One
had
thing I
trouble
wrote
getting into
down-
the car, and she had to unlock the door
Yeah.
for him. When
Right.
it was a convertible, he could have just climbed right in.
but
With no back
car
end
didn't,
either.
the
Yeah,
car didn't
exactly.
have a back door or anything there. You can't lock the car because there was nothing to lock it to. But I thought that was a
Right.
nice little thing in the direction where he couldn't open it and she had to lean over and unlock the door so that he could get into the car.
So she starts to open up a little because he finally they're one-on-one. He's kind of calmed down. And so he finally decides he's going to tell her a secret.
Right.
What does he tell her?
I've never begged a babe.
Never
I'm not
begged
a
a babe.
stud.
I'm not a stud.
He's a freshman in
Yeah.
high school.
And it's seemingly very early in the year. Like it feels
Yeah.
like school just started. So
Yeah. So not a stretch that he would have not
No.
begged a babe yet.
he, even though they kind of opened up, then he takes it the wrong way and he jumps on her. This is another, I'm sure, he's like obviously going way over the line. But I love how the horn honks.
Yep.
And then he takes what
Pushes
she
him
says
away.
the wrong way, so he does it again.
Yeah. He goes for it twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then he says,
That's
I'm kind of
aggressive.
like the king of the dipshits.
Right. Well, and
Oh.
this is the part in the movie where Courtney's favorite line is because when he leans into her one time, she says, "Oh, I can actually feel how much you like me."
Oh, yeah.
And here he has like a little can of breast spray in his
Or like
pocket.
mints. I thought maybe they were mints.
Oh, is that what it was?
Like lifesaver type mints.
Yep. So he pulls that out, and my wife's favorite line is, "Fresh breath is a priority in my life."
She said, I could feel how much you like me.
Yeah, I could. That's what it was.
There.
Yep.
So he tells her that Jake asked about her. And she, of course, can't believe that. And he goes, Jake's my boy.
Right.
Who they've talked like once.
Mm-hmm.
And it all leads to floppy disks dating the movie. You know how expensive floppy disks are.
Yep.
And he actually gets her to let him borrow her underpants for 10 minutes. So, I mean,
10
Sam,
minutes,
yep.
She's a pretty cool chick. She certainly goes along with things, even though he's been a total asshole to her ever since the second they met.
Well, and before he even asked her that, he asked her, "Would it be totally off the wall if I asked to have sex with you?" Like he is just, it's absolutely relentless. He has no idea on how to read the room or anything. He just consistently goes after what he's looking for. And I could not, the line, can I borrow your underpants for 10 minutes?
And that's the thing. He just wore her down. I mean, eventually she's just like, and she's had such a bad day,
Right.
She's just whatever.
He was the only person that was good to her all day, though.
Yeah,
that's true. He actually likes.
She...
I mean, whether
despite jumping on her twice, and all that. Yeah,
he gave her attention. He
gave her some attention that nobody else did.
Well, and that was the other thing I really loved about when they first started talking in the car, and Sam reveals that it's her birthday, and right away he jumps into, they say it's your birthday, and he's like drumming on the bash, and he just
Another
going
one I
after it.
loved as a kid. I used to do that all the time.
And then he tries to start singing "Hey Jude."
Hey, Jude. He's such an idiot.
That shop scene is just one of the best scenes in the whole movie.
That
God,
was.
it's so good.
It's a showcase for why those two were so big at the time.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so as you mentioned, Caroline was very sick of the party or the dance, and so the party did eventually move to Jake's house, and so that's where the movie is going now. It's just supposed to be a small gathering, of
little
their
get together.
friends. And by the time we get there, that house is one of the most trashed houses.
Oh my God.
I mean, we talked a couple of weeks ago about the Mr. and Mrs. Smith house after the gunfight, the
Mhm.
squirrel in Christmas Vacation. This house might have almost been worse.
Right. Yeah, I can't imagine. And the thing that I found crazy was that Jake is like the coolest guy in school, and people still treated his house like this. Like
Well, that's what alcohol does to you, Gibbs.
Yeah.
I think that's the message here.
I got to tell you, it never
You
made
should
me
try
do
it
that
sometime.
to a friend's house that I went to. Drop weights through a floor and down into the
That was a little extreme.
wine cellar.
Oh my God, that part is just everything with Dong and the lumberjack in these scenes here is just
So
wonderful.
here's a question I have for you. So we see Dong and the lumberjack and Sam driving to the party after the dance. So Sam is newly 16 years old, does not have a license.
Right.
Dong is a foreign exchange student. Why the hell did Grandpa give his car to these two people to go to the dance?
That's a good question.
Because that car, as we find out, is
I guess
is
Dong
below
must have
water.
a driver's license, or
Maybe he's older. Maybe, I mean, he could be 18, but
Maybe.
for all we know.
Well, and we find out that he's a foreign exchange student staying with Grandma and Grandpa, and he's a servant to them. He mows the lawn, he does the dishes, he does he's basically doing everything around the house for these people. So maybe he's also the grocery shopper, and he gets to drive the car.
They think he's so responsible. But then
So we also have
he's
actually
also a badass.
It's before they move the party to Jake's. We see the party so Sam is practicing talking to Jake to herself,
Mhm.
and they're getting their coats at the end of the dance, and they come face to face, and he smiles at her, and she just totally freezes up and just walks away. And he gave her such a nice smile, and she couldn't handle it, and so now she feels terrible again. And then also at school, we again get the big scene in the bathroom where they're taking $1, or is it $5?
It's $1.
$1 to get in. All the you got to be a freshman boy,
Mm-hmm.
and he comes out to show the underpants, and they're all just they can't believe it.
Can't.
It's like,
So speaking of driving, though, this is another one. So we got the gong sound, but when Dong is driving crazy, you've got the Chinese music too playing in the background. Just
Yes.
and it's
When they drop her off at home.
Yeah.
And they
but
continue
he
on
says,
the party.
I've never been so happy in my whole life. We do get a little break from the kids to see the in-laws at dinner, and the Godfather music is playing, and we meet the fiance, who, man, he is just a peach.
Yep.
So,
Who is also the janitor from the Breakfast Club.
oh yeah, right. I knew I recognized him, but didn't really think
and
about it.
He was also in another Hughes movie. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. But so the mother of the groom, did she look familiar to you at all?
I don't remember her looking like anybody that I noticed.
She was in Major League. She was a wife at the dinner party at Lynn's fiance's penthouse. Tom, remember when?
When Tom shows up, or when Tom Berenger shows up, and
to the dinner
we got
party.
uniforms and everything.
Right. And there's a younger couple and an older couple there. She's the wife in the older couple.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like I said, Jake's house is trash. So Dong shows up, crashes the car, doesn't even notice. It's like up on another car. Not only does he not notice, him and the girlfriend get out, but there's two people making out in the car that he smashed. They don't stop. They don't notice either.
Right.
You've got the nerds are walking in, and Anthony Michael Hall says to the other two geeks, "Be polite to his parents, okay?" The dipshits ring the doorbell. Dong is the one who opens it up.
Yep.
And we get the second use of the F word again and the R word all in quick succession right here.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Jake is not enjoying the party. He's up in his room trying to call Sam because she has her own phone line, and the grandparents are in there, and the grandma answers, and he won't say anything. And when she hangs it up, the grandpa says, "What did they want?" And she just goes, "Sex."
Well, because he waited and waited and waited. It rang and rang and rang, and then
then he
when
said, "Eat me."
yeah,
right
he
before.
says, "Eat me."
I didn't.
as
Yeah,
he's
yeah. Is
hanging
the
up.
other? Yeah, I didn't quite pick up on that. So it was somebody else in the party that picked up and said,
No.
"Eat me" or whatever.
No, that's what Jake said. He was kind of, as he was putting the phone down because he was upset that it was ringing so long. He just said, "Eat me,"
Yeah.
and hung up
They-
the phone.
He didn't
Okay.
hear them actually answer that first time.
Right.
It was all that
Got
set
it.
timing.
Yep.
Let's see what else we got here. So the geek knocks over the beer pyramid. We've
Yep.
kind of hinted, and then he blames it on the one friend, who then blames it on the other. We see later on they both end up in the trunk of the car.
Yep.
We see Dong and his girlfriend on the exercise bike, which is hilarious. Jake is still calling, and then he slams the door on Carolyn because she's all drunk, and her hair gets caught. Another classic scene.
Mm-hmm.
And so
We meet
First of
Jamie
all,
Gertz.
Jamie Gertz, yep.
Mm-hmm.
He gets through. The grandma calls him a foul-mouthed hooligan and cuts him off. And while this is happening, she can't wait, and her friends, who are totally drunk, cut her hair with a big, huge scissors.
Right.
And they all just hug and think it's wonderful. The weights go through the floor, as you said, into the wine cellar. There's destruction everywhere. And finally, it ends with the geek being trapped under a table, and nobody knows he's there. And luckily, Jake gets him out.
Well,
And that's how the two of them are left alone at the end of the party.
That's what I thought was funny is his reaction. He's not trapped under there, but he's acting like he is.
I thought he couldn't move the table. Like he's stuck.
Well, he
It's
could have
too
swung
heavy.
it
He
out
could have
the
just rolled
end.
to the left or to the
Yeah, he
right.
could have
That's what I
rolled
didn't get
out
either.
from underneath it.
It was
however he
open-sided
wanted.
No,
table.
I thought it was like had glass sides too. Like
No,
No,
because he
he could have
picked
just
it
got
up
out.
and you could see.
Well, then I didn't understand that at all. I always thought it was like a rectangular glass table
No,
that went all the way to the floor, and somebody put him in there, like the trunk.
no,
Nope.
Huh.
no. He could
Well,
have
that would
got
make
out.
more sense. What I thought.
That just made me laugh because he like acts like he can't, but it's like just crawl out from under the table. My thought was he was hiding from
He was
The-
scared. That's what I
from
thought
the big
too.
guys after he knocked over the pyramid
Yeah.
of beer cans.
All right. So we see those two are going to be together, but during that time, we do have kind of the nicest scene in the movie where
Mhm.
Sam is at home, and the dad comes down, realizes they all forgot her birthday, and they have a really nice heart to heart. And she even opens up about Jake and everything. So which is important in the end of the movie, like he's aware of this boy that she loves, and so he feels bad and makes her feel better. So that's a nice scene. I think
It
we
was a very-
referred to
very
that
nice.
once on a different episode. Do you guys remember what movie we were talking about? Oh, Clueless. Because the Clueless dad,
Oh, because the
we
clueless
compared
dad.
the heart to heart he had with Cher was like this. So we have a Clueless episode you can listen to. All right, so back to Jake and the geek talking about Sam. And this is where we've all said Jake's this really nice guy and everything, but this is where the problematic stuff really kicks in because Caroline is passed out. And his famous quote is, "I could violate her 10 different ways if I wanted to," which, yikes, that's a pretty bad line.
That's
Now,
a
he
bad
didn't
line.
say he ever has or would. He says it in passing, like, I could if I was that kind of a person. That's kind of how I took it. Like, I'm not that kind of a guy, thankfully. But it does not
Yes.
come off sounding right. And for the dreamboat that everybody loves, it's kind of a bad look, of course.
Well,
Mhm.
and right before that, when they come back to Jake and Ted, I love this scene because you've got Sinatra playing in the background, and you got Ted.
You also have a
Next-
pizza on the turntable.
Right. But you've got him in the kitchen, and Ted's mixing up like martinis,
Yeah.
and you got Sinatra in the background,
Well,
and
those two are great together.
and Ted's telling him all about how girls are and how, it's just so great because he has no experience at all, and he's a little young freshman, and he's trying to lay it all out for Jake, who's obviously, older and probably much more experienced with women. But again, it's all of that confidence in this kid to sit in front of the coolest guy in
Yeah.
school and tell him what girls are like.
And we do learn here that Jake, he obviously he was with Carolyn, but he's looking for something else now, and he does want love, and that's why he's interested in Sam. He's something different. But this is the other thing I found quite creepy. So when Jake tells her that he has her underwear, he asks to keep it, and I get, okay, he could return it, but that's still really weird. Like, oh, here's your underwear. I got it back for you. And
no,
no,
that's not good.
Although, I mean, at least I think we do see him give it to her at the end, right? And she kind of laughs. I mean, so at least
I
he
believe
put
so.
some closure into that. But when he first asked to keep it, I'm like, that's not cool either.
It's a little weird.
Just burn it.
Some of the stuff.
I felt a little bad for Sam because, I mean, she was, spending the rest of the evening just, hanging out there, breeze blowing through. And
sure was.
So that'd be a little rough.
So he goes up.
Oh. I was just going to say, though, that some of the stuff backing up a minute to, some of the offensive comments that they make here and throughout the movie, it actually makes it more real in a way, because guess what? That's how a lot of these teenagers talk.
That's true.
I mean, that's how. So
and even really still today, there's gonna, it does kind of show that.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So it does add realism. Even though, you're right, it never would get made today, or if it did, it would be everybody would be up in arms, but it's realistic.
Right.
So he then offers the geek the opportunity to take home Caroline, and he finds out it's his dad's Rolls Royce. Again, this guy has no driver's license. He can't.
Right.
He doesn't care.
Especially.
I wrote down that he puts a freshman in his dad's Rolls Royce with his passed out girlfriend and a sixer of beer.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. That actually ties in later then, I guess, because I got a big question at the end, but the 6-pack might help explain.
Yeah.
It's a very big plot hole at the end. Okay.
Because Ted's carrying Carolyn out to the car, got her over the shoulder, and Jake is carried a 6-pack of beer to put in the car with him.
This is another one too. I mean, it's more, it's got to be implied. He doesn't say like you can do what you want with her and everything, but I mean that is still, the implication is kind of there that it's like, okay. So again, it's all problematic. It's all very much dated.
But he did say make sure that she gets home.
Yeah, and I think that's truly the plan, is get her home. He just didn't. I don't know. It's like his gift to him to let her drive the car and be with her.
And at this point, Carolyn wakes back up. And now we have a interesting drive
and before that though, Jake's out in the yard, and what happens?
Oh,
sexy girlfriend! And Long Duck Dong falls out of the tree, right on him.
Yes.
We see the big guys dropping the guys off out of the trunk. Rebel Yell is playing, and Carolyn is wide awake now, and she gives Ted a birth control pill because he doesn't know what it is, and he just takes it. Then he talks to the camera when she passes out with her head on his lap and said, "This is getting good."
I don't know if she was passed out.
Oh, I think she just fell over. I get again the implication.
I took that as that she passed out.
Okay.
Yeah. Because she's out, and that's the positioning. It was deliberate how she passed out. Yeah. But to me, she passed out.
Okay. Fair enough.
So he goes to his friend's house. And again, this is so funny how he goes up and quietly tries to get him. And these two just knock everything in the house over, make all kinds of noise to get outside. Because he wants some pictures to have proof that he was with this girl.
Yep.
And then they take the pictures, and we see the picture they took is just Ted's face and nothing else.
Right in the bottom corner, and nothing else.
All right, so now we flash to the next morning. Dong is passed out on the front lawn. We hear the R word again because the grandpa's talking to like 911 or somebody trying to find out what happened to him, and they ask if he was that. Because he describes his outfit as tan pants and an Argyle sweater.
Yes. A red Argyle sweater and red shoes, I think is what he said.
Oh, and red shoes too, yeah. So they all go to church, and then they see him lying on the ground. And these are some of the great lines of Dong. He wakes up and he says, "No more Yankee my wanky. The Donger need food."
That's the line for me right there. That is the line that I quoted more than any other out of this movie.
And he asks, "Where is my automobile?" Automobile? Lake. Big lake. And he does the whole like car crashing sound reenaction.
Mhm.
Oh, that whole scene is wonderful, and the grandpa's so mad, and the grandma's so mad because they're so uptight, and that's
well,
awesome.
the other grandpa's just loving it.
Oh yeah, he
It's
loves it. He
hilarious.
thinks it's hilarious.
See, that's what I love about that guy. Always
Mhm.
laughing.
Yep.
All right, we get to the wedding and,
Oh, no,
stuff nearby.
Before that, we see Ted and Carolyn in the
Yes.
roles.
I think there was a scene before that where we see, because I have written down here.
right,
I always got creeped out at the end because that lady at the wedding is the lady from Poltergeist.
Yes.
And I've mentioned how that was the movie that screwed me up as a
Mhm.
kid. And I had seen that movie. And so even though I love this movie, when I saw her on the screen, it always just creeped me out. I hated it. And she's so weird and she makes those weird sounds with her. I don't know what that character is all about.
No.
It's like it's in there just to taunt me.
That's what John Hughes was going for right there.
Yeah. All right, so you're right. Geek and Girl are in the car. He has his headgear on now.
I love that.
Where did
I
that
marked
come
that
from?
down. Where was he keeping that all night?
That's my question. The other big question though, so they're trying to figure out what happened.
Yes.
And my question is, okay, why wouldn't he remember what happened? Because he wasn't drunk, he was driving, he was cognizant of everything. But I guess if he downed the whole 6-pack, maybe they went
Right.
somewhere.
And there are beer cans all over in the car. You can
Yeah.
see.
So at least
Yeah,
that
that's-
does give some explanation as to that. Because this is the other thing. Everybody that I read, I mean, the people that don't like the movie anymore, I mean, they say he raped her. But I was like, well, neither one of them knew what they did. But then I'm like, but how did he not know? But
Right.
you know,
Or maybe he did, but he wanted to test her and see what she thought, what her impression was.
but so yeah, again, it's obviously you can take
know what I
that
mean?
scene different ways, and
Yep.
I always took it. They both were drunk. I never really thought about his role in it, how he got drunk, but neither one of them remember what happened, so they're both,
Right.
they both were there. But anyway, that's another big problematic part of the movie that you just
Yep.
wouldn't see that today. It's too many questions.
Yep.
Mhm.
Jeannie goes from weird to weirder. That's Sam's sister because she's had, she's on her period. They announced that to the whole congregation, and they've given her all kinds of pain relievers, and she is just completely loopy.
Yeah, she took 4 muscle relaxers, and they have kicked in full force as it's time for her to walk down the aisle. And her walking down the aisle is
That's a
just
great scene.
one of the funniest moments.
I love when she
Painful to
sits
watch.
down because she can't make it any farther.
Yeah, she sits down halfway up.
Plays
the
with the hat and bats the bells.
aisle, takes her veil off, like this is Scratchy, and like throws
it
her
was so
veil
good.
up by the altar.
Well, before that, though, we flash back to Sam's house because Jake has showed up. And these are my other favorite lines by Dong. So Dong answers the door and he says that he saw him last night. And Dong goes, "Is that you?" And he goes, "Yeah, that me." And then, of course, another line that I still quote all the time is, "She got married."
Mhm.
Married? Yes, married. Jeez. It's so good. And Dong is just working off his hangover.
Well, and what I like about
Jake
that
is very confused.
is after he closes the door and Jake kind of whispers to himself,
Yeah.
"Married?" And then you hear Dong from the other side of the door, "Yes, married." It's just
And
such
to oily bohunk.
yes.
All right. So Jake is confused. He's going to head over there. We talked about Carolyn. Jake then comes to the church, and this is where they're in the parking lot, Ted and Carolyn, and he sees them kissing, and he just pulls up and just can't believe what he's seeing. Ted's friends call him on the car phone.
Right.
That was funny. Jake and Carolyn then break up. So after he sees them kissing, they do have they talk about how it's just not going to work anymore, and they've run their course.
Yep.
And I noticed in this, she really reminds me of Catherine O'Hara. Just the way she talks and acts. I kept getting very much, she reminded me of a young Catherine O'Hara.
Huh.
Side note.
Did not think about that at all.
There.
The wedding is over. Sam comes out late because she had to go back and get the veil. All the cars clear away, and there's Jake. And If You Were Here by the Thompson Twins comes on, and oh my God, the scene's wonderful. And I love how she looks back and can't believe he's looking at her. And then I love the little part though too. The dad is still there, and she points at him, and the dad's like giving her a thumbs up, and they're also happy, and she gets, her happy moment there finally.
Yes, I could see that as the father looks at a senior boy taking away his sophomore
Yeah, I know.
daughter. You guys just go off and do whatever you're gonna do.
But he
Yep.
trusts her, and he
Aye.
loves her, and it's those two had their moments. So
Yep.
And then they have, again, I don't know why they're sitting on a table, but they're sitting on top of a table with the cake in between, and he says, "Make a wish," and she says it already came true. And I love that song so much as it's playing there. And
Yep.
happy endings all around. Maybe some date rape, maybe not. Maybe some bad intentions, maybe not.
Happy endings with date rape, maybe not.
Either way, this movie is still hilarious and fun to watch. It will be for the rest of my life, and I can understand why people think it's problematic, and I get it.
It is problematic,
but you can
still.
watch it, talk about it, and still laugh your ass off at the same
Yes.
time.
Yes. Right.
There's
Well,
very
and it
few
does-
movies that had a bigger impact on me as an 8-year-old than this
Right.
one.
Well, and it does encompass that teen angst and that,
It does.
as
like
anybody,
you said, Pete, it's very realistic.
whether you're a
Unfortunately.
boy or a girl, like you understand the insecurities that Sam is going through, and having feelings for somebody that you don't think they have them back, and you understand if you're a teenage boy what it's like to try to go out and get some and just throw yourself at anything that moves to see if you get a response. And
I think we can all relate.
Well, and
Yep,
the characters all the characters are so relatable, and that's again like with the
Like
Breakfast Club, which we've talked about that too. By the
Yep.
way, you can listen to that one. The characters, the kids, while problematic, that's what kids are, and so they are very real and easy to see yourself in there. Maybe in multiple. Maybe you can see yourself in part of Jake and part of the geek, but you can always relate and see yourself in there, and hopefully you can make good decisions and be a good person too. So
well, and even with Dong, Dong is a kid who's been living with this old couple pent up.
yeah,
He gets
and he's
a
just
night
out to have a good time. And
He gets a night out and he's gone, man. I mean, he's gonna live it up because he doesn't know when he's gonna get that shot.
and he
and
deserves it.
That's a very common thing too.
He's
it
never
doesn't matter.
been so happy in his whole life.
It doesn't matter if you're a foreign exchange student or not. You know what that was like to go out and just let her buck and to hell with the consequences the next day. So yeah, I mean it touches on so many things that you go through when you're in high school. So I still like it. I think it's very good. And you're always going to have issues with language and different themes that have been corrected.
And the language, the F slurs and the R word, those are things that are more a product of their time. They're easier to kind of pass off as like that. That's it's things change. It's the sexual stuff that's harder to pass off and like think, oh, John Hughes, you're such a great guy. Why? But then he's writing this kind of, and like I said, I think you can explain all of it if you look at it the right way. But I also totally get the other side.
Right. I'm not ready to cancel the movie. Let's just
No, I'm not No, I'm never going to cancel it.
Nope.
It's going to always be one of my faves. And so speaking of that, do you have anything else to say, or should we get into our top 5 movies of 1984?
Let's get into our top 5 movies of 1984.
Let's
all right.
Go ahead.
Well, I'll just run through mine first since this was my choice. So 16 Candles was number 1. Always Will Be. The other movie that I was dying to choose was The Karate Kid. And Pete luckily picked it, so it's coming in 2 weeks, and that's my number 2. Those 2 movies to me are 2 of the just most perfect classic movies of the 80s for myself. Speaking of problematic, my number 3 movie is Revenge of the Nerds.
Oh boy.
And that's another one of the funniest movies I've ever seen, yet obviously if you watch it today, you got a different lens of certain scenes and things in it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Number 4 is The Natural. That was one of my first sporting love movies. And then number 5, I had Splash with Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah, John Candy. And then I just want to list off a few others. So you guys, Pete, you might remember this movie, I think. Do you remember the movie Irreconcilable Differences with Shelley Long and Ryan O'Neal?
Yeah, wasn't
they were in
Drew
like a
Barrymore,
divorce going through this thing. And that was a movie that was on HBO all the time. Like as a kid, I must have seen that movie 10 times, and I remember watching it over and over again. I haven't probably seen it since 1986, but I loved it.
Was Drew Barrymore in that?
Yes, I think she was their kid, right? You're
Yeah,
right.
that's what I was thinking.
Yep. Johnny Dangerously, a movie that I love, thought about even for this. Cannonball Run 2. The Muppets Take Manhattan. Another movie that I watched a ton as a kid was The Neverending Story. First, A Police Academy came out. One of the movies that I remember going to with my family, and again, I'm sure it was PG, but you've made fun of me for going to see Witness. But I saw the movie Tank with James Garner, and I remember, and I don't even remember much about it, but I remember going to it. Gremlins, Footloose, Purple Rain, which we brought up, and another movie that I remember being big at the time because we were farmers was the movie Country came out, and it started with it had this big tornado scene at the beginning, and Sam Shepard and maybe Jessica Lange were in it. And it's one of those movies that kind of went away. But as a kid, I have vivid memories of coming out because it's all these people from Tyler were like, "Oh, Country's coming out, and it's about farmers." And so those are all my honorable mentions. And I could have gone on and on. That I kept it to those, but there are so many more movies from 1984 that I looked at and thought, "Wow."
Yeah.
I'll go next.
Pete.
And I will say, Brad, you did not name the movie that I had as my
Oh, good. Well, I didn't think I did because we already kind of talked ahead of
as
time.
my little sleeper pick. I'm going to name off my top 5, and then I will talk about my sleeper pick a little bit. The number one movie for me, probably of all time, was The Natural.
That's what I thought you were going to pick actually when I saw this list.
It's still, I can watch it anytime it's on TV. If I'm flipping through, I'll sit and watch it all the way to the end, because obviously it's got probably the greatest finish in movie history. Yes. And so great movie. Number 2 was the other movie that I had wrestled with, and I wanted to do an episode about this one, Footloose, but I chose Karate Kid just because we love Cobra Kai so much, and it's relevant now. Yes. But that's why I chose it. The next one is the one we are doing next week, is Ghostbusters. That is the movie that I think I remember we rented that movie, and I think I watched it about 8 times in the one weekend that we rented it, because I would watch it, rewind it, and just watch it again, rewind it, and watch it again, and it was just, I loved it as a kid. And number 4 was the one we've already discussed tonight, 16 Candles. And my number 5 was Karate Kid. My honorable mention, the first one I'm going to talk about, is one that I remember watching it and thinking it was one of the funniest movies of all time. At the time, I don't remember really hardly anything about the movie now, which it would be great to rewatch it and see if it holds up, or if it's
okay. Well, we'll work it in sometime in the future.
We may. But it's Top Secret. Do you remember that?
I've never
Val
seen
Kilmer
it.
was in
I've never seen it either.
And Val Kilmer is like a spy, and it's from the makers of The Naked Gun, and so it's that kind of humor.
I always thought I heard it really wasn't good, but I never saw it, so I can't say.
I remember my brother loved it, and I watched it, and as a kid, I thought it was funny. So maybe it doesn't hold up. I don't know. The next one I had on my list was one that we actually, as a family, just watched last week out in the backyard. We watched Romancing the Stone, which included, I did not know this because I hadn't seen it in about 30 years, but it included the actor that played El Guapo.
Yes, it does.
and he plays a crazy guy, and he plays that same kind of role too.
Yep. And his little truck, the mule, Pepe.
That's right.
I actually don't think I've ever seen that movie either. So
I just watched that again maybe 3 months ago. I thought it was I really enjoyed it.
Who's in that? Is it Kathleen Turner?
Yeah, and Michael
Douglas.
Because I always got that confused with the Jewel of the Nile.
It's the same too.
They're the same. It's a sequel.
Oh, really?
Sequel.
Yeah.
Okay, well that makes sense then.
Yep. And Danny DeVito also is in those movies. And all 3 of them are also in War of the Roses.
Yeah, War of the Roses. I was just going to say.
Together. Yep. Do you remember, Brad, The Woman in Red?
I do.
Movie I seem to remember liking.
Wait a minute. Am I thinking of The Man with One Red Shoe?
No, that's Tom Hanks.
Who's in The Woman in Red?
Gene Wilder, I think, was in it.
Oh, Gene Wilder. Yeah, well, very vaguely. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I had Police Academy, Splash. I had Temple of Doom, which I did watch it and rewatch it. I liked it at the time, but it's really the worst of the original 3 Indiana Jones movies, in my opinion.
Yep,
I had Purple Rain. I had a movie that I also watched over and over again as a kid called Cloak and Dagger.
I remember that. Dabney Coleman.
Dabney Coleman and some kid was in it, and I remember thinking it was a good movie, and maybe I should watch it with my kids because I loved it as a kid, but haven't done it. And then I had Terminator, the first Terminator.
That came out in '84.
I found it on my list. Did I make it? Am I going to get audited by the?
I have not even seen the Terminator, but I thought it did come out in '84.
That should be on my list then.
By the way, the kid in Cloak and Dagger, Pete, was Henry Thomas from E.T.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I do remember that now that you mention that.
Oh, all right. Well, shoot, I did not have the Terminator on my. I'm sorry, Pete. Were you finished with your list?
Did you check? Was I correct?
Yes, you are absolutely correct. I can't believe I missed that on my list. I'm going to throw that on my honorable mention since I have my top 5. Or you know what? No, I'm going to change that. So I got a couple honorable mentions with Footloose, Purple Rain, Gremlins, Revenge of the Nerds, and one you guys didn't say yet. This is Spinal Tap. Came out.
I've never seen that movie either.
I don't think
I keep telling myself to watch it, and I just never have.
It's a lot of fun. I've heard rock bands say that movie is very similar to the types of things that they go through.
One of these days, I just gotta get back on it and do it.
Yeah. So my top 5, I'm gonna move the Terminator into 5. Great movie.
What'd you take out?
I took out Footloose.
Okay.
Number 4, Beverly Hills Cop. Did anybody say Beverly Hills Cop yet?
No, nobody said that.
You know what? I actually did have that, and I forgot to mention it because I was making markings on my paper. I inadvertently crossed it out, but yes.
Okay. And then my top 3 are the 3 movies that we are covering this month. Number 3.
What order?
16 Candles at number 3, Karate Kid at 2, and Ghostbusters at number 1.
Wow, we chose wisely for you.
Yes, this is gonna. I love this month because I love those movies. And you throw in Fritz and Wheezy into the mix to start it all off, and might be the best month we've ever done, folks.
It is.
It's certainly a good one.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, I don't know if we have anything else to say.
I'm done.
I've got something to say. How about a little Preacher Row?
I love it. Love it.
You know, those guys were just babies in 1984 too.
Yeah, they would have been mostly in first grade going into second grade, right?
That's where they were getting their start.
Well, a couple were even younger.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. So anyway.
Awesome.
They were just learning to stand on their own 2 feet.
Hey.
Oh yeah.
There you got it. That's a good way to wrap.
Perfect segue. Here we go.
Don't forget to tip your waiter.
Bye.
No one's here to comfort me. Sorry for what I have done. Sorry that your son is gone. 7 steps and it will be my last. Hands tied, tell me on my back. Hard turn and I look to you. I'm scared but there's nothing I can do. Hang high if you want to.